Hello, everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. Today, we'll be talking again about chronic illness pain. Chronic illness pain is something that affects so many people, but what is important with chronic illness is how do we suffer it or go through it while finding joy along the way. It's important that people always remember that not because you're born with a chronic illness that it means your life is limited or you can't achieve what other people are achieving. Many people today who are born with or diagnosed with a chronic illness from birth or whenever you were diagnosed with it from are going on to live through greater and amazing things. They're having jobs, they're having families, they're being a contributor to society. And they're doing all of this because the system has changed, technology has changed, and awareness has increased. More people are knowing about it, knowing how to care for people with the illnesses. And most importantly, the people with illnesses are empowering themselves to do better and live better. My guest today is Michael. Michael's a lover warrior who lives with sickle cell, who was born with and diagnosed with sickle cell anemia from an early age. I'll be talking to Michael about his own challenges of living with sickle cell disease. Sickle cell is a genetic blood disorder which affects so many people. It mostly affects people from Africa, especially the West African parts of Africa and East Africa. But now, due to migration, people have been traveling, it's becoming a global issue. Michael, who's diagnosed with sickle cell from an earlier age, since 1968. He will be telling us his challenges and what he's doing to get himself to where he is today. Meet Michael. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. I've got Michael here who's going to talk to us about all things living with sickle cell. Michael, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks.
Oh gosh, I was really blown away when you said yes, because one of the things why I really look up to you and I'm inspired by what you do is just that you've lived with sickle cell from a very earlier time, and you've seen the struggles people with sickle cell have had to deal with. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about you. Who is Michael?
Well, I was born on 25th of September 1968, obviously today. Yeah, I was born in Islington to Nigerian parents. I had an older brother who's sadly passed away. We were both diagnosed with sickle cell. The difference was that when he was born in 1966, they had no idea that he had sickle cell anemia, and he was ill between the ages of 0 and 2 years old quite a lot. He was in and out of hospital. Then finally he had heart failure. Nothing seemed to be working, and then they rang a hospital in London because we were raised in Ashford in Middlesex, which was just outside of London. So the area that I was raised in, there were no black people at all. So the knowledge about illness like sickle cell was zero. It just wasn't there. The knowledge was not there. But then finally a doctor, I think who may have previously worked in London with a few more sickle cell patients, said, well, maybe this child might have sickle cell. So they ran some tests, and then they finally realized that he had sickle cell. Because, I mean, sickle cell is not something you're necessarily born with. It develops between your first 6 months of life. The actual SS, the full-blown SS condition. So they realized that he had it, which meant that they realized that some of the treatments that he had been given up to that point had not really helped him. And so then they had to quickly get on to some doctors in London who, like I said, had a little bit more experience in treating sickle cell patients. And slowly they built up a course of treatment. And when I was born 2 years later, they looked for it straight away. So I came because we were fostered. It was a private arrangement between my father and this English woman that we just called her Nan. She decided to foster us. My dad was traveling around the world on business. My mum worked for Lloyds Bank in London. So they had good jobs. And so they felt that it was, we were at this hospital that was treating us for sickle cell anemia. If we had gone back to Nigeria, obviously the medical infrastructure in Nigeria is nothing like what it is in England. And I honestly don't think that if we had gone back, we would have survived, because I know how bad a sickle cell crisis is. And even in England, we've had some traumatic experiences of waiting on hospital beds in screaming with pain and then being told to be quiet and stop making so much noise and stuff like that, hours on end. I would hate to, I really feel for sickle cell patients in Africa who have to wait maybe hours and days for treatment. And even then, it's not necessarily the right treatment because the money and the infrastructure simply isn't there. We had, for example, for another documentary we're doing, we were interviewing the leasing of TLC, T.O. Watkins. Now, obviously in America, you need health insurance. She was not diagnosed with sickle cell anemia until she was 27.
Yeah.
And famous, and then could afford to get the proper treatment because obviously she was in a million selling band. So her life up until 27, when she had a crisis, it was just unbelievable pain for days on end. Again, it was a miracle that she managed to survive until that age. So for us, those first few years in being raised in an all-white area outside of London, because the hardest thing I always find in suffering from sickle cell anemia is the lack of awareness of people around you who simply do not know what you're going through, or going to school and having to tell the teacher, I don't want to go out during break time because it's too cold. And a teacher looking at you and thinking, well, you look all right. You've been, and I always used to say that if I was in a wheelchair, the minute, how different my life would be, because people think, well, there's something wrong with him. But because I walked around and I looked fairly normal and I looked fairly healthy, people never understood, or teachers never understood, or friends never understood that within a second or within 10 minutes, I could be in unbelievable pain simply by being out in a playground on a cold day, or being outside on a hot day and being dehydrated.
Yeah, no, this is...
lead you down to the same dark road.
Yeah.
But it's, or like, for example, you could be in a group of people, then everybody starts running for the train and you're struggling.
Yeah.
And people, oh, you can't be that fit. Or you're being made to do PE in the middle of winter and you're out of breath, and the teacher's saying, oh, you're just not fit, you're just lazy.
Yes.
Or climbing stairs.
No, absolutely. Some of the struggles, I think, I dealt with most of this struggle, but one of the things I'm keen on is that even with all this struggle, Michael, one of the things I'm really inspired by when I read your bio is that you're doing great things. How did you overcome challenges of the pain caused by sickle cell to go on to do what you do now?
Well, I'm not really sure. I mean, I suppose that if you're born with a degree of a reasonable IQ and a desire that you want to get A levels and you want to get a degree, that's one thing that can motivate you, because even a teenager, that your life will be easier if you have money and a job and a house, and your life will be extremely difficult and extremely hard if you don't have any qualifications. I mean, it's just a matter of trying to secure yourself a better life. That's the motivation, and overcoming. I mean, it's incredibly difficult, because I was in a situation where I was 18 years of age and thinking about going to university. My brother was 20. He was at university. He'd been sponsored by British Gas. He was like 10 people from 1,000 applicants that were given a sponsorship to do a degree at Birmingham University. Why he was at Birmingham University, he suffered a sickle cell crisis and passed away. And he basically, the situation, he was in a situation where he was in A&E. Again, he drove himself to A&E So they took the view, well, if you're, well enough to drive yourself to A&E, it can't be that serious. And 3 hours later, he was dead. And it's kind of that me off going to university, so I did my degree part-time. But those are the those are the terrifying obstacles that you really have to overcome when you suffer. It's like a minefield. It really is a minefield, knowing that the next crisis, the next bout of pain is just around the corner if you do the wrong thing. And sometimes you're not, and because of the lack of awareness, you're not sure what the wrong thing is. Teenager, you're not sure that the wrong thing is drinking too much alcohol. You're not sure the wrong thing is that, flying, for example, the dangers of flying. There's so many different things that you do that it's almost trial and error. I mean, I remember being young and being at the seaside, and I spent the afternoon, it was quite a windy day, flying a kite. And after I flew, I came home and I was in absolute agony. So straight away, because, you can't fly a kite anymore then, because it's going to cause you. And it was a lot of things like that you think, okay, well, I can't fly. And it probably what happened was it was a windy day. My muscles were getting cold and stuff like that, and then getting warm very quickly. And so my blood wasn't, flowing as it should do. It caused a crisis. And a lot of other things that maybe I was carrying an infection at the time. That's another thing that you could, there's all those little things, but it's literally, it's a minefield, up until around, you get into your mid-30s, and then you finally have had enough experiences of doing the wrong thing or pressing the wrong button, then you realize how to avoid crisis and stuff like that. But as I said, but you're surrounded in a world where there is so little awareness that you have to manage yourself, and sometimes you have to make decisions that other people don't like or don't understand because you're thinking about your own health condition.
So what kind of decisions would you say led you on the path of success? Because I read from your bio that you were you're the first Black journalist to work for the Mirror, Sunday Sunday. Is it Sunday? The Sunday People. Then you went on to the Daily Express.
Yeah.
How did you
it was just
ignore that pain and say, look, I know you, one of the reasons you gave was that, look, you have to have a house, but you still need
I suppose it's your own ambition, your own desire, and your own ego to want to achieve something. And that's my mindset, is always, I want to really achieve good things and do good things. And I've always felt that if I didn't have sickle cell anemia, I've achieved so much more than I have even at this point in life. And that's my one big frustration. But at the same point, if you're going to do something, my mindset is to shoot for the moon and want to do it the best you can. So, we set up a production company because we wanted to make some really good drama and really good documentaries. So the motivation just comes from inside and just your own desire and wanting to achieve and prove, it's like also the other thing about maybe being Black is that you're the underdog, and it's always triumph over adversity, which is a lot of, Black people I always find quite a creative race of people. We are quite creative, and we always consider, we were the first on this planet, and the chances are we'll be the last off it because of what we've been through. We've been through slavery, we've been through discrimination, we've been through segregation and stuff like that. And we are still learning, as we, alluded to earlier, about we should put our own interests first and look after our own people first and our own country first, because we've got so much to give the world, and we've given so much from the world, and so much has been stolen from us. And it's kind of, as a Black person, you think you see yourself as an under, but you wouldn't have it any other way. It gives you so much more satisfaction knowing that you have achieved something against the odds, rather than have it handed to you on a plate.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's, as a young Black male, that you really want to prove, and you've always got something to prove, and you will always have something to prove, because of, you are looked down on, and a lot of the world are not controlled by people that look like you. And the people that run the world that do not look like you think that you are this type of person. You're stereotyped, you're grouped, you're consigned to a type of person. consider yourself, um, um, and it's just one of these nightmare scenarios. It's one of these it's just one of these nightmare scenarios that you know that you just, I don't know, the drive comes
Yeah.
from within yourself, you know, within your own mind and your own heart, that you want to achieve everything that you can
Yeah.
in life.
In your opinion, people with sickle cell are still being born today, and there are lots of little kids out there, lots of adults living with sickle cell. In your opinion, with what you've been through and how you've achieved great success, what would be your advice to other people who are dealing with sickle cell and still don't know their way out to find their own passion and joy?
My advice, first of all, you've got to understand your own body and your own condition and learn how to live with it first. And then once you learn how to live with it and believe that you can live as good a life as the next person, as long as you know how to manage your condition, never mind what other people say to you, manage your own condition first. And then from once you do that and realize that as long as you manage this condition the way it should be managed, it needs to be managed, you can achieve everything that you set out to do within, you know, your own limits, your own intelligence, your own IQ. But learn how to manage your condition first. That's the key. Once you've learned that, you can take the next steps, because there's nothing else to stop you. We're now moving, you know, drawing to a time where, you know, point in life where barriers are being taken down a little bit, not a great deal, but a little bit. You know, there is a little bit of social change. It's not as much as, I don't think there's as much as people think, but there is a little bit. And as I said, once you learn to manage your condition, you can then look at these opportunities that were not afforded to Black people even 10 years ago.
And just take advantage.
And you know, and you just always, you know, always believe, you know, there's no reason why you cannot be a TV presenter or a journalist, or, you know, I set up a TV production company. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. Your sickle cell will not stop you from doing that as long as you can manage your condition. If you can't manage your condition, then it will. So that's what you need to do. You manage your condition, and then, you know, you can achieve whatever you set out to achieve within your own limits, you know, within your orbits. But never wake up thinking, because I've got sickle cell anemia, I'll never be able to be a journalist. I'll never be able to be a blogger. There's lots of things that you can do that are safe. Yeah, there's things that you can't do, like you're never going to be a professional sportsman. Okay, so forget it. It's not worth. You're never going to be a footballer. You're never going to be a rugby player. Just forget those things. It doesn't matter. But you can be a sports journalist. You can be you can be a blogger writing about sports. There's lots of things around sport that you can be involved in. You know, most people without sickle cell anemia don't get to be professional footballers. Yeah,
Exactly.
Elite bunch, a very, very elite bunch. I mean, I started out as a music journalist. Okay, now, you know, one of the biggest selling girl groups in the 90s was TLC. Their lead singer, Tian Watkins, had sickle cell anemia. She was the lead singer of the biggest selling, you know. So you can achieve some of these things, but just, forget the things that you can't do. But, you know, if you love sport, then you can still get a job in sport with sickle cell anemia. Or, you know, if you love music, as I love music, I was a music journalist. You know, and if you've got other ideas and other designs that you want to make drama, then I'm making a documentary at the moment. Nothing to stop me from doing that, as long as you manage your condition.
Okay, you're working on a great project for people for sickle cell. I think sickle cell is one of them. I don't know if one of the conclusion is there something you could share with us a little bit about this
Well,
project?
it's about 80% done now. It's called the Night Motown sang for sickle cell anemia, and it's about the highest profile night that there has ever been to raise money for sickle cell anemia was Motown 25. it was the 25th anniversary of Motown Records in 1983. Berry Gordy wanted to use the opportunity to celebrate their 25th anniversary to raise the profile of sickle cell anemia. Unfortunately, it was also the night that Michael Jackson chose to do the moonwalk for the first time. So sadly, the narrative changed. The Motown 25 became all about Michael Jackson and this sensational performance that he produced, and not about the original cause, which was sickle cell, which almost got wiped off the agenda. But I mean, we didn't do it on purpose. It just, that's the way it happened. That this performance that he produced on television was sensational. Everybody, you can't disagree with that. But we also want to raise awareness for sickle cell anemia and the people that watched Motown 25 that were inspired by Michael Jackson, and then surprised to learn that it was actually supposed to be an event to raise the profile of sickle cell anemia, and how hard it's been since that time for like the UK sickle cell charity and sickle cell charities to raise this illness's profile, because basically it does only affect Black people. And so, in 100 years of broadcasting, the BBC have never ever commissioned a documentary to raise the profile of sickle cell anemia. Really, really, really sad. And that's really how, that's what we're up against in terms of raising, because it's all about profile. I mean, you've seen what, the profile that, Corona V.
Yes.
And the money that's gone in for a vaccine. And I often wonder if sickle cell anemia was contagious, not hereditary, where we would be in the development stage. No, you know what I mean? There's just
there's a whole different things. So your project, when do we expect it out?
Hopefully we'll be out next year.
Okay.
We're doing a drama called Get Over Heaven, and a movie, Get Over Heaven movie, a prequel movie, which is going to focus on the relationship between the Black community and the police over the last 20 years, with things like the Sus Law and such, like the antagonism and the birth of Black political consciousness in 1979, a documentary about that, and how Black people in England have become so much more politically aware from that period onwards, whereas in America it was the sort of the 50s and the 60s, and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. We never had those people over here, and it took things like the death of people like Blair Peach for Black people to suddenly say, no, we're not gonna, and Colin Roach was another one, and we just decide that, the police are institutionally racist, and we need to do something about this. So those are the kind of subject matters that we're dealing with in terms of the movie, and another documentary we're doing. And another documentary we're also doing is to raise the profile of sickle cell anemia.
Well, honestly, Micah, that's amazing. I can't wait to see this documentary when it's out, and also support it in any way I can. I'm absolutely delighted that you took the time out today to, give us a little overview of sickle cell since when you were born in the 60s, and how it's evolved over the years, but how it's almost still the same. Still more needs to be done. In your final word, what more would you say needs to be done to keep raising the awareness for sickle cell?
What more needs to be done? Well, it needs more documentaries like the one that you're doing, like the one that I'm doing. Profile is everything. We've seen it with Corona V. And people see it. There's more pressure on governments to invest in research and development. That's what really needs more research and development, because if there'd even been 1/10 of the amount of research and development into sickle cell as there has been, for example, into HIV, our lives would have been so much easier. I mean, for example, the Terence Higgins Trust was launched, I think, about the same time as Motown 25, 1983. Now, the Terence Higgins Trust and the Elton John AIDS Foundation, they make millions and millions and millions of pounds a day, which they then spend on development and investment. And if you go to places like Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, there are AIDS wards which are sponsored by Elton John and the AIDS Foundation. And the treatment of respect for him for achieving that, but it all comes from money. And if there was There are a lot of very wealthy Black celebrities now that could also put the same amount of money into sickle cell that Elton John has done for AIDS. I mean, Elton John has raised a lot of money. He's put in a lot of money of his own as well. But there are billionaires now like Jay-Z and Beyonce and Oprah Winfrey that could perhaps use their profile and their resource to put more money into research and development for sickle cell. And there are a lot of very wealthy Black businessmen that could also do the same. And that's what needs to be done. These people need to be encouraged more to look after our own community, look after their own community, as the white community have protected their own interests, as they're doing now with Corona V. Once it affects your mortality, it's amazing where the money can become and how quickly it is to build a new hospital. Literally overnight.
I know.
So when it's a threat to your mortality, the money is there, and that's what we need. It just makes you think that if they really wanted to,
it can be done.
It can be done. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate your time. You've said, really, you've highlighted key issues, and I really hope people take this on board, and we all work in unity and keep finding solutions and keep doing your great work. You're doing an amazing job with sickle cell. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.